All right, so we've already finished up the practice on these pieces of paper, the two of them, with the different line qualities with the oil pastels. Remember, hold on to them because we'll practice watercolor washes on top of them. They're labeled as such. Now we're going to practice drawing a pumpkin on this paper. If you've got a piece of paper, this is watercolor paper again. It was attached to the other watercolor paper. It's the middle size, right? We talked about it at the beginning of the last video. We're drawing pumpkins, and if you look at my example pumpkins here, they're all wider than they are tall, right? They go longer from side to side than they go from top to bottom. All of them do, even when you add in the length of the stem on top of them. So instead of drawing on your paper vertically, turn your paper horizontally so you can fit more of the pumpkin onto your paper. And when you're doing this, it doesn't matter, you're using watercolor paper. If you have a smoother side and a rougher side, it doesn't matter what side you work on with this work. We're going to be adding watercolor after we do the pastel lines of the pumpkin too, after we practice that here, before we go to the final artwork. But if it has two different smoothnesses, one smoother and the other rougher, you choose. The rougher side is going to show more variations in the line quality because it's got a rougher edge. It's not going to accept the pastel as easily, especially if you're not pressing too hard. All right, so I've got mine on the smoother side, but it could be on the rougher side. So choose, once again, the same pastel you used on the previous practice. And remember, you want to hold it like this, where you're holding it more at the working end and away from the non-working end, okay? I like to hold it like this so that my hand has better control of it instead of like this. I have better leverage and I can control where they're going more easily. Now what we're going to do is look at one of these pumpkins and rough it in onto the paper. So I'm going to do just the pumpkin that's right below my paper here. This is going to be my inspiration. Because my eye level, see my eye is like right here? It's much higher than the pumpkin is. When I'm looking down on the pumpkin, my view of it's different than when it's at my eye level. At my eye level, the distance from here to here is definitely more than it is from here to here. But when I'm looking at it this way, the distance from side to side is closer to the distance from top to bottom. All right? So keep that in mind when you're drawing. It all depends on your angle, your view of the object and how you fit it onto the paper. Now, this pumpkin is basically a circle this way, basically an oval this way, right? But when I have it at my eye level differently, like that, I see it a little bit differently than both of them. It's not quite a circle, but it's more than an oval. And I want the bottom of it to come maybe about an inch before the bottom of the paper so we can put some ground that is sitting on to give it context. So maybe about an inch or so. And I want to make it, see if I can make it come all the way to about half an inch or so from the left-hand side and maybe a half an inch or so to the right-hand side. Now I'm going to see if I can make that fit into this space effectively without changing anything. So the distance visually from here to here should be more than it is from here to here. And if it's not, my pumpkin's a little bit differently shaped, right? I can turn it so it does effectively do that for me because of my angle. I could also lift it up a little bit higher so the distance from here to here is more than it is here to here. And I think that's going to make it easier for me to draw. So, you know, anytime you can help yourself out, do it for yourself, okay? Now, because I've changed my placement, I'm going to move my paper over a little bit here too, just so you can see what I'm drawing as I draw. And remember, you're going to draw after I draw, right? So just watch. And remember, since it's a video, you can always pause it and you can go back. You can re-watch it. It's not like you have only one chance to see it to do it, okay? All right, so now I need to move my phone a little bit more, and maybe I'll pan back just a bit. I don't want to go too far so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So now we're going to rough it in or block it in using the underlying shapes technique. Because it's almost a circle but not quite, it's a little bit more of an oval, what I want to do is draw it on my paper as an oval that goes from here to here and about up that distance. So I'm going to just kind of do a real variation of the sighting method, where I measure the distance from there to there into relationship to there to there. All right? So I've closed one eye and I've squeezed the top and the bottom between my fingers, and then I rotate them, and I see that this distance from here to here is about a fifth more than this distance. So about a fifth more would be about like that, and then I just rotate it. That's coming really close. So I'm going to bring in my outer edges to here and here, so it doesn't go off the page and I can fit it in more easily. Now I've got more of what I see there for the space. All right, so now I just rough it in as that oval shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, and the most important part of this is keep your lines really light. We don't have an eraser for the oil pastels, okay? So whatever you draw is going to be on your paper. So when you draw it, keep them really light. I think you can just barely see those lines as opposed to the marks that I made to start and stop it, okay? Now I've got it roughed in for the bulk of it. I want to put in where the stem is too. So let's look at the stem and how it relates to the body. The stem starts right here. Notice how that's much lower than the back edge. It's not right here where it is. It starts right in about here on my paper, down below the top edge, which is right, or the back edge at the top of my pumpkin, which is about there. So I want to put it about where it is. It's not quite halfway down. It's about there where it meets up with the pumpkin, and that's the start of the stem. Now I'm going to draw the basic shape of the stem. What I see of it from my view is a rectangle that goes away from me, but at a slight angle this way. It might be different from your viewpoint, but remember, my angle is different from yours, all right? So it stops almost at the edge of the pumpkin. So it's a little longer and maybe a little wider than what I originally drew. I drew a little darker than I should have, so keep it light so you can make a change. And then it's kind of a rectangle, but on top of it, there's kind of this triangular shape that flattens out at the top. And then off to this side, there's another piece that bumps out. And then I've got this long, sinuous stem or vine that I think I might not draw yet. I might come back to it when I do my contours. I'm not going to worry about it yet, okay? Now the contours are the curves of the object. It's directional changes of the object. So this is a contour, this is a contour, and each of these little scallops on the face of the pumpkin, those are contours. So this is a line, it's a contour line that separates this section of the pumpkin from this one. Those are contour lines. This edge right here is a contour. It changes our direction from here going this way to going back down to the stem. All right? So contour lines are what we're going to be doing with our next step. So rough it in and go to the next video.